We've got a lot of work at government level in terms of trying to pull research out from the research centres into usable areas. So ERDF, European Structural Funds, is being used heavily to try and create pools of people, business development people, to support the translation of knowledge from research centres into business and the community. And ECCC, Edinburgh Centre is one of them, but there are many others that are involved in that. And then you've got things like the TSDs, innovation centres, you've got the Centres of Expertise on Climate Change, which we'll hear about a bit more later. We've got behaviour change research going on through the government. And then we've got a suite of partnerships that are being developed, and we're seeing a lot more of these. These are just a few from Edinburgh, from Strathclyde University, where there are, again, these are to meet the very specific commercial drivers. How can we get the best science and the best engineering and the best social science out from universities and applied in businesses with commercial value? How can we join up our dots better? How can we join up our efforts? Well, this is obviously the type of forum that we need to do it, and so we need more of these. So obviously we need better communication between overlapping networks. A point that came up this morning in the workshop was that one of the things we've seen over the years with the development of the web in particular is that every single research project wanted to have its suite of web pages. But actually then, of course, as soon as the project finishes, somebody goes on their way, you just lose that information. So you actually need, if you like, communities of interest which will capture and hold that information if it has value for other people far more effectively. So actually creating overlapping networks is important. We're also starting to see a lot more in terms of innovation systems, saying we need to get groups of people, whether they're communities, businesses, policy people, sitting alongside researchers, so you can align the interests of the researchers with communities, policies and businesses. We've obviously got a lot of skills programs going on. And then in cultural terms, again, because of the pools, we're starting to see this type of response, which we had 10, 15 years ago quite commonly, starting to get broken down. We're getting much, much better cross-institutional response. There are, in certain institutions, and I come from Edinburgh, still a tendency to focus on, what is better, as if you don't need both. So that is still an issue. You have to have good pure research to have good applied research. So it's a matter of saying, how can we ensure that we've got both? The final point I want to make really on research and innovation is that, as Andy Glover said, we are fantastically lucky in Scotland because of the talents that we have in our research base. But if you go and look at most of the reviews of translating that evidence base, that research quality, into good ideas, practically, actually we've come quite a long way down the league. We're coming up the leagues, but we're still quite a long way. We're starting from a low base. So, for example, a recent report from Kerr, from the UK Business Department, describes systemic failures leading to low levels of enterprise formation. In other words, fantastic ideas sitting in research institutes and universities, not actually being pulled through and applied. Now, they had a very business focus, but it's not just about business, it's also about bringing good ideas through to policymakers, for helping communities to understand some of the issues that are going on. So it's not just about our profit, it's actually about just bringing good ideas through to society. And indeed, if you're going to hit any of these targets, whether it's building resilience against climate change, or it's improving, or it's hitting any of these carbon or energy, low carbon energy targets, you cannot have people sitting in institutions with good ideas not pulling them through. We just won't get to where we need to go. And we won't do it simply by researchers thinking they can do it themselves. You have to work in collaboration with communities, with governments, local authorities, businesses. And so a lot of the issues, the challenges that I would say in terms of delivering the best of this research is around cultural issues, about who we talk to, is around skills levels across many different public and private sector institutions, and it's about this information and people exchange. I'll just give two examples to finish of what's going on at the moment, which are trying to address exactly these issues. One of which is the Edinburgh Centre, which I'm heavily involved in, which is basically saying, look, there are two things. If it is explicitly not a research centre, It is saying the gap is in taking good research ideas wherever they are, any institution, doesn't matter whether they're in Strathclyde or in Bombay, pulling them through and actually then making them happen, making them real. And to do that, you have to put the people and the ideas together, and you have to tie it very closely with skills development, with professional skills development. So that's one example, and that's about creating hubs for building partnerships, for information, people exchange, about equipping people from very different backgrounds with professional skills. And it's about then this business of enhancing innovation, getting these good ideas out from individual research centres, from institutes, from research pools, and saying how can we actually work with talented people to see what we can apply from this information. And the second example I just wanted to finish with is this Centre of Expertise on Climate Change. And I know Rebecca's going to be talking about this a bit more, so I'm not going to labour the point too much. But it's really making the point that this is a very innovative way in which the government is saying, can we get much better access as policymakers to the sort of evidence that exists around the research community in Scotland and elsewhere? And how do we need to do that? We need to both focus research effort there, but we also need to make sure we've got this ability to translate, to package up, to communicate this information in a way that's meaningful to policy teams. In other words, there is a packaging issue, a communication synthesis issue that we don't do as researchers typically, and yet the policy teams need to make sense of what the research is going on. And that's it's quite a big initiative which is just spinning up at the moment and should be sort of firing on all cylinders from that energy. Right, I'll stop there. Thank you very much.